a great amateur career at 63-2. You know, well, that's not my complete. It was actually 63-4 with my record. But I fought Roy Jones Jr. as an amateur, you know. And we come through at the same time, and I fought some pretty good fighters, you know. And then, like the guy I've got over training now, he fought Miguel Cotto several times. And actually, you can get his stuff so even on YouTube. You know, back when me and you was growing up, there was no YouTube. To find our amateur records would be amazing in its own right. You know what I mean? I still got my book, you know, but or my mom does anyway, an attic. But to actually look up and find our records would be astonishing. But he's got Jacob come along late enough that they had YouTube, and there's a YouTube video of him actually fighting Miguel Cotto, his last amateur fight before he turned pro. He did turn pro, and if you look him up on BoxRec, he was 7-0 with 6 knockouts, but he had an injury, and then he decided he wanted to go to ministry school, and he started working with kids at the gym, you know, because me and Vernon had a gym here, and it's the same gym I still use today here in Aiken, South Carolina, and I'm trying to convert it over to where I can bring some guys from MMA, because I got most of them in Florida now training, you know, because I got the funny thing is I've got out of the 8 fighters, and this seems kind of funny, I don't know how much you keep up with, you know, the coaches and the trainers and stuff now, but I've got out of the 8, I've got 4 with the Black Zillions, 2 with American Top Team, and you know them, they're like arch enemies. And they really are, and but that's where I picked them up from. You know, a friend of mine, Scott Hurst from Miami, called me and goes, "Hey man, you know, I know you took on an MMA guy. Are you interested in taking on any more?" And I'm like, "Well, what is?" And this guy comes in and he weighs like 325. I'm like, he's got to lose 60 pounds off the muscle before I can put him in there.
What did he weigh?
325.
He weighed 325, and you were gonna fight him.
No, I wasn't going to fight him. I told him, he's got to lose 60 pounds before I can put him in, you know, against anybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, he deadlifted like crazy numbers, and you know, bench pressed like 570. You know, and I'm like, wow, you know, the kid's got the strength, and he actually was a good wrestler. I think he was a 2-time runner-up. You know, and that was his sophomore and junior year, and he got injured his senior year. And of high school, and Terry is working with him down there at the Black Zillions, and Rashad Evans has even worked with him a little bit, you know, and Rashad said, I can't wrestle with him, he's just too damn big. And when I talked to him Monday, they said they had him down to about 305, but he's been down there for 4 weeks now, and 20 pounds in 4 weeks ain't a lot of weight, you know, as well as I do.
No, it ain't.
You know, we can cut weight at a drop of a dime, you know. Granted, most of it's fluid weight and stuff like that, but it just ain't enough weight. And I talked to him today, and he's got a decent. He had fought as an amateur. He fought like 3 amateur MMA fights and won all 3 of them pretty easily. None of them went past 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And but all of a sudden he blowed up. He's got an eating habit. But you know, I don't know how. You fought long enough that maybe you developed some of the same patterns I did. That I become a binge eater. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we would go so long cutting weight. You know, can't eat this, can't eat that, can't eat this. Well, after fighting, I would binge eat for a week, you know. Next thing you know, I done put on 18 pounds in a week. You know, but I always maxed out. I fought as an amateur at 132 and 142, you know. But I never walked around no more than about 160, 161 anyway, so it really wasn't that big a deal for me. But for a guy like him, he goes into a binge eating process. He blows up 50, 60 pounds. And I had to have a talk with him today and tell him, you know, that's not going to work, because nobody's going to let you fight at 265. I mean, you got to be 265. Just about every organization there is out there. And
is South Castle 265. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Imagine
if I was 6'5", you know, my body weight would never be at 265.
No, I never recall you being like that, Gary.
At 300.
He's got a 28% body fat ratio too, and that's driving me nuts. You walk around with what? What was yours? 6 to 10% tops?
Yeah, I don't know.
yours wasn't that much, your body fat ratio. It wasn't that much.
Yeah, no, it was not much, but yeah, I kept it pretty high, but yeah, that's pretty good.
And mine was always real low. But he can't walk around with that. And I told him, I said, we've got to get set. I said, there's a time comes that you either are going to decide that you're going to do this for a living. You're young enough now at 22 years old that you can hunker down and do this. Or you can walk away from it. You know what I'm saying? And you can go get you a job. Now, I said, I mean, this is a job. Don't get me wrong. This is your career. This is your livelihood, and this is probably a harder job than anything you're going to do. I don't care if you go dig ditches on the side of the road. This is a hard job. I was trying to, express to him, but I flew him up here just for that meeting, because it's easier to sit down and talk to somebody face to face than on the phone. And I'm not the type of person that's going to sit and chew somebody's ass out. I'd rather, because if you sit and you talk to them, you can get across to them a lot better, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I see that you're proud to be a father. I'm proud to be a father. I'm a single father. I'm getting ready to get remarried, but I've been a single father of 3 daughters since 2008 myself, and then that is by far the greatest accomplishment of my life. No matter what I do from here, by far the greatest accomplishment of my life is my 3 little girls, and the oldest one's in college. Now, I had a son that would be 24 this year, but he passed away at 12 years old, and I talked to a few people about telling them I was going to talk to you tonight and everything, and everybody was telling me that you was that one of the websites or something had done an article on you not too long ago. Do you know anything about it?
An article with what are you talking about?
Saying that you was just like a vegetable, pretty much. I said, that is not the Gary Goodridge I talked to today, guys. I said, that man had all his wits about him. I said, that man had all his wits about him. I said, what y'all don't understand, I said, what he's got is what, back in years ago was called pugilistic dementia. Is that what they probably, I said, now.
That's what they called it. That's exactly what they called it.
Yeah, I can remember because they thought I might have had it at one time. Punch drunk, whatever you want to call it. But pugilistic dementia was the actual medical term for it. I said, but now it's like a subsidy of CTE, which is the stuff, that they diagnose all these football players with. I said, but in all honesty, I said, fighters have a lot worse cases of it than what football players do. I said, now, and and your story touches my heart, because I think I told you I have an uncle that played in the NFL and stuff, and he was friends with, he played on the same team. He played on the Chargers, and Junior went on to, commit suicide. And talking to Junior a couple of times I met him, you'd have never thought that. You know what I'm saying? But it's a front that you learn to put on, and I'm sure you did too at a time. It's a front that you learn to put on, and instead of accepting it, because the first step is surrender. You know what I mean? Admitting you have a problem. Something is wrong. Let them treat you for it. And Gary, I am so glad to hear that you, and to hear you talk and to carry a conversation with you is just perfect. I mean, you're just your wits are there just as well as they was when I heard you talk in Birmingham, Alabama. You know what I mean? And back in '96, and it does my heart good. It really does. It really does. And like I said, I didn't know. That was one thing I was going to ask you about. And I didn't know if you really wanted to talk about that. But then I seen your background photo on Twitter, and I said, well, yeah, he's proud of that too. You know what I mean? And I'm glad you are, because you should be. You're proud of being a father, and I am too. That is our greatest accomplishment in life. I don't care what else we do. If we make millions of dollars or win world titles or whatever, it's greatest accomplishment is our kids. That's the only thing that they can't take from us, no matter what. Yeah. And that's the way I look at it. And I've got my middle daughter right now is in love with this kid that I just signed. He's the super heavyweight. Number 1 super heavyweight in America, but he's they moved the box office up to age 19, All right, and he's 17, about to turn 18, so he's going to turn pro instead of waiting 8 years to go to the Olympics, So, and I'm like, well, I'm all for that, And I've actually been able, and some of these fighters are just unrealistic on what they think you can get, money-wise, and then some of them have been, like Darnell, for instance, had been done wrong so long that he assumed that his top purse was $2,500 to $5,000. I'm like, excuse me? And when I got him the first two, I've only had him for 2 fights. In the first fight, I got him a purse of $25,000. Plus travel, plus training. He's like, is that a psych? I said, a what? I'd forgot psych being a word, back when we was kids. And I'm thinking, a what? A psych? I said, no, it ain't no. I'm thinking he's talking about psych ward or something, I'm going, no, that ain't no psych. He goes, no, seriously, is that a joke? And I'm like, no, that's no joke, Darnell. I mean, that's what you should be getting. When you've got the resume you got, I mean, you are the true definition of a gatekeeper. I said, in all honesty, but you're better than that. And I'm going to, I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, Gary, but
of course I am.
On Facebook.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Okay. I'd like to send you an article that my editor-in-chief has wrote about Darnell, about him being the modern-day Freddie Pendleton, really. And a lot of people don't realize, it looks like a caller was trying to call in on the line for a minute, but I didn't advertise. We usually give like 2 iPhone 6s away during the show and stuff. Depending on who the sponsor is, which I do have to mention, by the way. Sponsor of this show will be Flex Mitts out of New Orleans, South Carolina. Heavyweight champion Brad Casey and his trainer Matt Nussbaum, the design they've come up with. Also Coca-Cola Bottling Company out of Atlanta, Georgia, and a Home Depot. I just have to mention that. I don't want them to call me after the show and say, hey, you didn't say nothing about who. That's more of a shout out than anything. And like I said, we're live in Jacksonville, we're live in Atlanta, we're live in Birmingham, and then we're on podcast, depending on there's thousands of different hosting stations. There's more hosting stations for podcasts than there is for websites. It blew my mind. And I didn't know nothing about none of this. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm talking 20 days ago. I didn't have a clue about none of this. I did have a boxing show on Sirius XM years ago, when Vernon was boxing. And I would do it like 2 days a month. I would go in there for an hour, and talk boxing. And I was one of the first people that talked about MMA going to overtake boxing. And I foresaw that. I really did, and it's doing it to me. If you take away the Floyd Mayweathers, the Manny Pacquiaos out of the sport of boxing, the pay-per-view numbers are astronomically heavy toward the UFC. And like I said, I do have a few MMA fighters, and I'm not going to say on air, but I would tell you off there real quick what I think about UFC and that Reebok deal. I don't think they're doing their fighters right on that deal. I really don't. I don't know what kind of money you made when you was as a fighter. Sponsorship money is where a lot of these guys get their money from, in MMA. And now they're capped with this Reebok deal. And then what they did to one of my guys, I'll tell you, one of my guys, Cowboy Donald Cerrone, which you probably know who I'm talking about. He's a good fighter. He just lost this past month, but they just fined him his total purse for wearing a patch on his Reebok shorts that honors his grandmother. First, Stitch Duran, they fired him and he didn't do anything to violate the rule. He just got an interview with BBC, Baylor-Rick TV, out of over in the UK, which I do a lot of interviews because there's a few of my fighters from over that way, boxers anyway. And he did an interview and talking about he's losing about $25,000, $30,000 a fight. That's a lot of money for a cut man, Whenever
a cut man is losing $25,000, $30,000 a fight.
Yeah, because, he had so many sponsors on his jacket. If you remember Stitch Duran's jacket, it would have so many patches and names and numbers. Tap out. He's the only person I see wear Affliction, Tap Out, and Sprawl all on the same sleeve. And I'm like, geez, I didn't even know that was possible.